Welcome on in, golf fans. It's your boy Gsluke here with our course preview for this week's Travelers Championship. Gonna go over all things TPC River Highlands, get you ready for the signature event. And I know last week we had the major at the US Open. Oakmont Country Club was a whole lot of fun to be there in person, but we got ourselves a signature event just the week after all that madness. So you know we're gonna hop on into everything you need to know for this week, and it should be a fun one with all the world's best playing. So without further ado, let's go ahead and hop on in with first off some of the course details for this week and what to expect in Cromwell, Connecticut. Unlike last week, this is a golf course that we see every year, and we have a really good idea for how it plays. We get similar types of players that win here over the years, and really a huge emphasis on driving accuracy. So no real surprises when it comes to what we're going to be looking for. So our modeling going to be pretty reliable on a week like this, but it's a par 70, an extremely short golf course. In fact, one of, if not the shortest golf course that we're going to have on the tour schedule most years at just over 6,800 yards. So length, not really a big factor around this golf course. And while there are quite a few forced layups that make it play a little bit longer than that, it usually plays as a wedge fest for most players. The fairway average also higher than your PGA Tour average, mostly because of the amount of layups that you're hitting. It's not like the fairways are overly wide. They're probably about average width, I'd say, but that's why it's about 6% higher than your tour average there. Your green average also significantly easier than normal. By the way, these averages from the last 3 years of the Travelers Championship, about a 7% differential from the PGA Tour average to here. So ball striking, not that difficult around this kind of course. Scrambling rate about PGA Tour average, which leads to slightly more birdies than normal being made at this course, just a hair over 4 per round, but also less bogeys per round than your PGA Tour average course. So it's a huge difference than Oakmont Country Club. Not going to be nearly as grindy a golf course, and you're going to see some rounds in the low 60s around here. Last year, you had Scotty Scheffler win this thing, and the last couple years it has been super top heavy because it's been a signature field event. But when you start to go a little bit further back before it was given signature status, you had a lot more players that were short off the tee towards the top, like a Kisner back in 2022, a Chesson Hadley, JT Poston before he really grew into the player that he is today, were the kind of guys that found success around here. But over the last few years, it has been a much stronger field. But even last year, Ches Reavie was still towards the top end of the leaderboard. Guys like Brian Harman, Zach Blair isn't a world killer by any means, and he still found a way to get into that top 5. So you'll see that when we take a look at some of the advanced analytics, and there's only 8 driver holes out of the 14 tee shots, which makes this a 3.4 out of 10 with the Bomber's Paradise. So not that much incentive to hit bomb or hit a drive on every single hole, and not a huge penalty for being a short player either. When we focus on the irons, there's a ton of shots from 125 to 175. A lot of shots not longer than 125 yards though, because of the amount of layups. So even though there are plenty of sub 440 yard holes, you're not going to be hitting 300 plus yard drives that often. So that's why the short irons and the wedges like pitching wedge 9-iron are going to be by far the most used clubs. So when we get to our modeling here in a bit, you're going to see some extra emphasis on that portion of the board. Around the green, you got all the shots around this golf course. You've got rough, you've got fairway areas around the green, bunkers, you name it. So nothing really to note there. Then the putting rate can be difficult on some of the holes, but you've also got some really flat holes around TPC River Highlands. So, you know, nothing like Oakmont where they had some of the most undulation that we'll see the entire year. Nothing like a Masters tournament, Augusta National that has really difficult greens. They're not all that terrible around here. And you can see that with the 3-putt percentage, only 7.7%. A high birdie percentage, a low bogey percentage out there. Just going to be a little bit of a warm up, get back after it after getting completely bludgeoned at the US Open. And you're going to see a lot of birdies from these guys as a result. In terms of our hole-by-hole analysis, we'll show you the shots required around here. Hole number 1 is 436 yards, and this shows you why a lot of players aren't hitting driver. You've got a much wider landing area the further back you lay it, and if you do hit a driver here, I mean, it really narrows down, and there's no incentive because even if you do lay up with an iron or a 3-wood off the tee, you're going to have a 9-iron, maybe an 8-iron into this kind of green. Next up, you have 2, which is 344. It does play directly uphill though, so it looks drivable, but it's really not because of that ascent. And it's still an easy hole though, and I will say that hitting the fairway at hole number 2 is a lot harder than it looks like on paper, because at 270 you're usually hitting a 3-wood to about this spot. The uphill nature and the blind nature of the tee shot will lead to some players missing towards the left side. 3 is 428, so a slight dogleg from right to left. Once again, the further down the fairway you go, the more and more the landing area narrows up. So that's why your more accurate players will hit 3-woods, just try and hit the fairway and try and gain strokes with the second shot. If you are long and straight off the tee, though, it can be massive around here, because if you're hitting drivers, you're going to have 100, maybe 110 yards into plenty of these par 4s. Next up is the next par 4. It's 487, dogleg from left to right. Your longer players can chew off this corner with a little bit of a forced carry, but once again, the wide part of the landing area is a little bit further back, and that's why your Kevin Kisners, your Ches Reeves, your Tom Kims, for example, have found so much success around this course. Next up, we have a 230-yard par 3, so this is a longer iron shot. If they tip it out, it'll be one of the harder holes out there, but they will probably move up the tee box for 2 of the 4 rounds. 6 is 585, so it is your first par 5. It is reachable on 2 for most of the field, if not all of it, depending on wind direction, but it does require you to hit the short stuff. So definitely a driver hole for everyone in the field, and the longer you are, the more aggressive line you can take down towards the right side here, which can leave you less than 200 yards into the green. Next up, you have 7, which is 446, another mid-length par 4, and once again, it just narrows down the further off the tee that you hit it. 8 is 208 yards, so another difficult par 3. That's a really common thing around TPC River Highlands. Also, a little bit of water in front, which comes into play for any front pin location. 9 is 403 yards, and another layup hole, because you can see there's an opportunity to hit driver over this bunker if you are a longer player, but it really narrows down and you don't have that much room to work with if you take that kind of strategy. And even if you do layup with an iron towards the corner here, you're going to have a wedge into this green. So that's why the second shot, in my opinion, is by far the most important part about this course. And then some putting. And, you know, I hate to say that it's like a putting contest, but it sort of is, at least compared to what we had at Oakmont. 10 is 462, so if you're starting on the back, this is a much more difficult start. You do have the trees down the right that can be problematic, and a tree in the middle of the fairway, so it's a very difficult driving hole, but it's not so bad if you can get the ball in play. 11 is 158, so the shortest of the par 3s at this golf course. Should be a birdie look to the easier pin locations. Pretty much everything but that back right corner should be a birdie hole. 12 is 413. This is a pitch and putt par 4. A lot of guys going to hit less than driver here, because even if you do, you have about 100 yards in. 13 is 535, so easily reachable par 5 for everyone in the field. The issue here is that you've got water down the left, and then if you bail out to the left, down the right, and then if you bail out towards the left side, you're going to have no angle towards this green. So just like the first par 5, you have to hit the short stuff to have any chance at going for it in 2, which is why accuracy on the par 5s is more important than power, because even your shortest players can get to both of them in 2, which was not the case at Oakmont. Next up, we have 14, which is 418 yards, another pitch and putt par 4 where there's almost no incentive to taking anything but a 3-wood or a driving iron. 15 is 295, so this is maybe the most famous hole at this golf course. It's a drivable par 4, and it's very similar to what you have at the Waste Management Open. It's just after the stadium hole. They have that drivable par 4 with almost the same exact look. So not much to say there other than it's a birdie look for everyone in the field. 16 is 173 yards. It is the second shortest par 3. The water is really much so in play here, even more so than the other ones that have water. 17 is 424, another famous hole that you have here. You've got the red umbrella that'll be in the lake towards the right side, and it is a layup hole. You don't hit driver here. There's no reason at all to hit driver off this tee shot, but you'd be surprised how many people are going to end up in this long rough towards the left side and have to lay up before going for that green with the third. And then finally, 18 is 444, another mid-length par 4. There's not a lot of variety at this course. That's maybe the one gripe I have with it. It's well manicured. It's that's about it. I think it's a really well manicured, really nice golf course. But from the architecture standpoint, I mean, even from the overhead view, it looks the exact same. So not quite the tested Oakmont, a lot different, but not every golf course is going to be won at a score of -1. This week, probably closer to something like -15, -20. And now that we have an idea of the shots required around here, let's talk about our modeling and what I'm looking for in my top plays. So first and foremost, we've got the core 4 shots gained stats. And what I'll say with these core stats over here, it's all over the last 24 rounds, is that approach play is the number 1 ranked. Number 2 is shots gained gained off the tee. And then number 3 is shots gained putting, and then a clear number 4, way behind, would be shots gained around the green. And the reason for that is how easy the ball striking is around here. Easier to hit fairways, easier to hit greens and regulation. So it would be kind of ridiculous to focus that much on around the green. So it's really those other 3 categories that are mostly weighing into this modeling. And like I said, you can hear that the approach play off the tee play were number 1 and 2 in that category. So recent form, always important for looking at, especially when you're trying to handicap an event. But I just at least wanted to throw that out there, as I am looking at those 4. Also looking at driving accuracy percentage, which I know we mentioned a few times in this video already. There's been a clear correlation to driving accuracy and players that have found success around here. So that is definitely going to be incorporated as well. I'm looking at par 4 scoring. Anytime you have a par 70, and it is by far the most prominent hole that these guys are going to be playing, I'll go ahead and incorporate that. Approach from 125 to 175. We already talked about how many shots are going to be in that range this week. It looks like over 8 per round in that proximity bucket. So if you want to focus on that, I think that could be very helpful too. And then shots gained putting on bent POA. That would be the last category we have here towards the right. Bent POA is the surface of the week at TPC River Highlands. So if you want to look at something on top of the regular putting stats, which putting does matter around this course. So looking at regular putting heading in, that would be your form and this bent POA surface. That's what you want to add on top of that. So if we go ahead, put it all together, number 1 is Scotty Scheffler, which by the way, if you're running a model and he's not number 1, then you're probably doing something wrong. But number 2, form guy, course horse, Sam Burns. I think he makes a lot of sense at this sort of a track, especially with how good he is from 150 yards and in. He's one of the better wedge players that we have on the tour, and you got to see that at the US Open. I mean, how many times was he chipping out of the rough and then hitting that wedge to like 3 to 5 feet and finding a way to save pars? Maybe not on Sunday, but rounds 2 and 3, I found that rather impressive. So good to see that the model likes him here as well. But Harry Hall, Sepp Straka, a very accurate driver. McIntyre, Corey Connors dealing with an injury, so I guess we'll have to monitor that one over the next week or so. But a Fleetwood, a Morikawa, accurate drivers that are ball striking first players are players that I needed to see towards the top end of my modeling to tell me that I did a good job with it. You know, Daniel Berger, Russell Henley, JJ Spawn, all accurate ball strikers. If these guys weren't in my top 20, same thing with like an Aaron Rye, if those guys weren't towards the top, then I would be, a little sketched out with the results of this model. But a Shane Lowry, a Nick Taylor, these accurate ball striking players are all showing up towards the top third of my model. So if you guys want to see my exact modeling for this week, you guys of course can check it out over there on my Patreon page, but that's a little Spark Notes version for what we're doing. Next, we got some comp courses, so 3 tracks I think that might play similar to what we get for this golf tournament. First off is the FedEx St. Jude Championship in TPC Southwind, a short par 70, not quite as short as what you have for this week. It does have 11 of the 14 driver holes, so you're going to be hitting the big stick a little bit more around there, but look at that 125 to 175 range, almost 8 shots per round, just like you have at this kind of event. Winning score is usually in the same range as what we get for the Travelers Championship as well. So agronomy is different. It is Bermuda grass from tip to toe at Southwind, but very similar shots required at each venue. I'm also looking at Sedgefield Country Club. That's the home of the Wyndham Championship, another short par 70, and you've had a lot of crossover from guys that have played well at the Wyndham, and then also guys that have played well at the Travelers, whether it's a Kevin Kisner, who has an excellent track record at both courses. Aaron Rye has had success at all these different golf courses. Other guys in the top 5, top 10, you'll see also playing well at this kind of golf course. 125 to 175 range utilized a lot more than usual. That's going to be a commonality between all these courses. And only 6 of the 14 holes are going to be driver holes around this kind of a golf course. So just like we have this week, a low Bombers Paradise rating on that track. And then the last one would be TPC Deer Run. That would be the home of the John Deere Classic. It's another short track. It is a par 71 though, so maybe slightly different from the setup standpoint, but another track where driving accuracy is preferred. And it's worth noting Southwind, Sedgefield also driving accuracy courses. Same thing with the John Deere Classic. A little bit of a lower winning score. It is even more so of a birdie fest than what we're going to see for this week. It is a little bit more driver heavy too than what you have here, but once again, the plethora of shots coming from 125 to 175, similar agronomy. So you have bent grass greens, the same kind of like Midwestern grass that we're going to have for this kind of golf tournament, the same as what you have in the Northeast. That's the differentiator here. It might not be as good of a ball striking comp as what you had with these first two, but the agronomy makes up for that a bit. Alrighty guys, that is all I've got for this week's course breakdown. Go ahead, smash that like button if you guys haven't already, and also go ahead and comment down below what you've got for the winning score for a chance to earn a free month of my Patreon page. On there is where I'm posting all my modeling for these events, also my projections for DFS, Showdown for rounds 2 through 4, as well as all the prop stuff I'm doing on Underdog and Prize Picks. I put stat averages out there, weather reports for every single round, as well as every single bet that I'm placing for each round of action. So make sure to go ahead, give me your guess for that winning score down below, and it's going to be on a first come, first serve basis. So the first person to get that correct winning score is going to be the one that gets that free month access. So go ahead, claim your score before anyone steals it. Best of luck with all of your exposure for this week. And also, guys, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you guys haven't already, so you guys don't miss any of the content to come. That, of course, will include our betting and DFS preview dropping on a little bit later on this evening. All the content throughout the week, including Showdown for rounds 2 through 4, props for rounds 2 through 4, and of course our Wednesday live streams at 7 and 8 p.m. Eastern time, going through all of your questions before lock. So you won't want to miss any of that. Make sure you are subscribed so you get notified when all of that goes live. But other than that, that's all for this course breakdown. Hopefully you feel a little bit more prepared for all this action, and I'll see you guys a little bit later on this week.